Well, okay, how's everybody doing this evening? May 20th coming on May 21st here very shortly. I think we're about 11, 12 o'clock at night. And the trend is your friend. And the news is your friend also, because right now everything is favorable for EOS to go up in price very much, very significantly. What I see is something really big about ready to happen. And not to mention all the stuff going on with the trade wars, all the talk about the trade wars. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that too tonight. So anyway, cryptos have had a big gain, a huge gain. In fact, a lot of people are saying crypto market is in bull territory, very much in a bull. Some very big players. Max Kaiser, for instance. I was listening to Max Kaiser. Max Kaiser says, we're in a bull market. We're in a bull market. Max Kaiser's been around a long time. The RT is on RT, and he knows a lot about a lot. And I think he was in the Bitcoin conference up in New York, and he was saying, we are in a bull market with crypto. Very much in a bull market. So the bull market is holding. It's going up. EOS is going up along with everything else. And right now, EOS hasn't actually realized the news, the June 1st B1 news that's coming up very quickly. That's going to be able to change a lot, hopefully change EOS as far as everybody, the way EOS is seen right now and what they know about EOS. Everything is going to change, a game changer. When Dan Lerner says game changer, that means everything's changing. A whole game is changing. Now, the rules, everything is different. Everything is going to be different. So he calls it a game changer. So that's coming up very, very soon. Plus the news. The news is very favorable for the cryptocurrencies. Like I said, been talking about the trade wars. The trade wars are literally a mess. Regardless of what side of the trade war you're on. I was listening to Warren Buffett the other night talk about trade wars, and he says it's an overall negative no matter what you do with it. And I mean, if you agree with Buffett, if you don't agree with Buffett, if you think he's anti-technology, although he buys more Apple than anybody else, you gotta know the guy has a brilliant mind, and he watches the news, and he understands trade. If anybody understands trade, it's Warren Buffett, because a lot of his companies do business around the world. Warren Buffett's trade wars are very negative for the market. Negative for the market means positive for the crypto market. The other thing I heard, which is interesting, is a guy by the name of Jim Cramer. He has a show called Mad Money. I don't know if anybody's ever watched this show or not. It has been around a long time. He's been around as long as I have, if not longer. I remember when he first came on. He was clear back in the tech bubble days. Jim Cramer has a show on CNBC. I've never particularly liked Jim Cramer. I never thought his analysis was very good. But he has said some incredible things here recently that just blow my mind. One of the things Jim Cramer has said is that everybody knows, and one of the reasons why I don't like the trade wars is because it hurts farmers. I used to be a farmer. I have a fondness for farmers. I like farmers. I want farmers to be prosperous. And I think the trade wars really, really hurt farmers. And Jim Cramer came on the other night and he said, hey, look, he goes, we pay farmers. We've always paid farmers. We'll just throw them $15,000. We'll just throw them some money from these tariffs that we're collecting from China. That's all we're going to do, and that's going to fix everything. Well, I want to talk just a little bit about that, because I was in farming back when they first had the PIC program and the early days of the program money, when we first started getting program money from the government. I mean, I know there's always been subsidies, but there was actually a program in place to help replace what it was that you were losing because the corn market was down during those years. So the government would pay you to set aside land. So you took your land and you set it aside. Now, did the farmers are smart. Did they take their very best producing land and set it aside? No, they took the worst producing land and set it aside. The other thing they did is they paid you not to grow anything on it. Well, what did you do in order to cut costs? You let that set aside land just set over there, grew weeds, never irrigated, never did anything. So after a few years, basically the land became less valuable because it had grown in weeds. It was not farmable, and some of that farmland was to the point where you couldn't grow it anymore, grow anything on it. Literally became useless land. It was marginal land to begin with, now it became useless land. That's the way programs work for farmers, and that's the way when you start interjecting farming subsidies, and so we're just going to pay back to farmers for all the lost monies they have with soybeans not being bought by China, and you come up with some idea like the PIC program or some idea where we're just going to magically pull a number out of our hat and give it back to farmers. It never works. It's always associated with some harebrained idea like the PIC program, where you set aside land that doesn't really help farmers, because the way the farmers work the best is when they're prosperous with the crops they grow, not when they're being paid by the government, because they have to get made up they have to be made up a price, that an artificial price that doesn't exist because the world market is so bad, or the overseas market has gone away. Another thing too, when I was a farmer, I used to grow Great Northern beans, like they have pinto beans, kidney beans. We used to call what they call Great Northern. Some people call them, maybe, I think they're a little different than whites, but we used to grow Great Northern beans. Used to sell a ton of beans when I was younger, when I was a kid. Still wasn't farming, but just, on the farm. The beaneries in our area used to sell a ton of beans to Iraq. One of their biggest markets was Iraq. For some reason, they bought a lot of beans. A lot of these Great Northern beans were raised. So that was a particular part of the world that really bought those beans, and it was a huge part of the market. When they started the war in Iraq, they no longer bought the beans. The market crashed, and I look to this day, and it's still no good. When I was farming beans, those beans would go for about $20 a hundred. That was just the average year, was $20 a hundred, and this is in the 1980s. And they're still getting about the same price, $20 a hundred. So you got 1980 prices in 2019, and that's crazy. And those markets never came back after that Iraq war. They never came back. The last time I heard, they were shipping very little, if anything, back to Iraq. So that's the way it goes. You lose those markets and they go away and they never come back. You lose these markets, these soybean markets, you lose these things. Not to mention the fact that if you have tariffs on countries like China, Chinese people, China's not, they're going to sit back and hold their hands and say, you got us, we're done, we can't do anything now. No, they're going to take the product, the parts, ship it to someplace else, have it assembled in that country, and say it comes from that country. So in other words, you got a Chinese bike factory, made in China. Well, what do? They'll take the sprocket, the tire, the spokes, the seat, and they'll ship it off to another country. Maybe ship it to someplace in I don't know, where could they ship it to? Someplace in South Africa, someplace in Ukraine, someplace in Europe. They'll just ship the parts, assemble it someplace in Europe, and say, oh, it's made in Italy now, because we took the parts, we shipped the individual parts to China, from China to these countries, and we just assemble them in this other country, and that's where it's being made now. So there's ways of getting around these trade wars, or these trade barriers and tariffs and costs, and that's what's going to happen. And it's going to hurt everybody, but it's not going to hurt the crypto market. The crypto market's going to be very strong through this whole thing, and it's going to be what benefits from this. And as my videos always have, we have a train coming through San Diego, or coming through Carlsbad. And this is a long train. I can tell by the sound. We have several types of trains come through here. We have passenger trains that fly through here really, really fast. We have these Burlington Northern, I believe, these trains that are carrying a lot of cargo, a lot of probably stuff from China. Who knows? But they're carrying a lot of stuff. Maybe sometimes cars. I've seen cars on there, but a lot of product is wood. I've seen lumber. So they go through very, very slow. And then you have other trains that are come through, and then they stop because people get on board here. So we have three kinds of trains coming through Carlsbad, and this one was a long one. In fact, it's still going through. So all I'm saying is this is the time to buy crypto. This is the time to buy EOS. I think there's going to be some big, big price advances here very quickly, like I said last night. And I've never seen anything quite like this as far as the opportunity is concerned. I think in all my time of investing, and that dates me back clear to the early 80s, actually late 70s, I would say this is probably one of the hottest things I've ever seen. The EOS market right now, given the fact so much positive news about EOS, so much positive news about the upcoming events, and the crypto market coming back in a strong way, and everything holding very well, and really the world news that is so favorable for cryptocurrencies right now. I've really quite not seen anything like this. And I think anybody that purchases some EOS right now is going to be very, very happy in the short term and in the long term. And I don't know, But if you're holding on for a long term, you can be very, very happy. So I appreciate you listening. Thank you very much.